LYLAS. If you grew up in the 90s and you know what that stands for, then this podcast is for you.
It is. And we are at episode 16. And you guys hopefully see the traveling podcast right now. If you watch this on YouTube, you'll see that we're together, which is again super, super cool. But this is our second setting since we've been together.
That's right. We're just going to keep traveling and rearranging other people's offices. And no, this is fun. This feels legit.
I know. It feels real professional. I love it. So we might just steal this like once a month and just record a whole bunch of episodes and just roll with it.
Just roll with it. That's fun. The traveling podcast. And to that note, we're going to just kind of chat today. We don't have like a topic in mind, more so chatting sort of what we've been up to this week and the fun bits of nostalgia we've got to experience and relive going back to our old stomping grounds.
Seriously. Yeah, it's been really cool. And I think to credit your point with this, whenever we originally thought about doing this podcast, it was just to like sit down and just what's going on right now, to not be so planned and to, what's the word you use? Be very organic.
Yeah.
That's your word, I think. And so this is what we're doing. We're being
just
organic.
With your bestie. My bestie happens to be a therapist. So free therapy. Here we go.
Right. Except she's also a hot mess. So this should be good. But no, this week it's been, I mean, obviously I live here, but it doesn't have the same feel to me when you guys aren't here.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a very, very different experience. And so let's go over our little walk through memory lane.
Well, I was actually thinking about that. Like, is it different for people that live here and that grew up here? Like, I get very nostalgic when I come back to this area, specifically driving through like Main Street, Milton, West Virginia. But I was thinking, like, for people that still live here, do they still get those bits of nostalgia? Like, I think about people I grew up with a lot when I'm here. Specifically, I'll have like a very specific memory. And I'll think about that person and like wonder what they're doing. And so I'm just always curious, like, if you're immersed in this environment all the time, do those memories kind of flood you all the time? Or is it just like you're kind of in your rat race, as always referred to our daily life? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do feel like, I guess you're right. It does feel, it's not as connected for me, again, when you're not here, or whenever, like Lynn doesn't come down here and visit, or whenever I'm not meeting with a bunch of classmates from Calvin Midland, because I don't know, probably 90% of us still like live within 10 miles of each other or whatever. But it doesn't have that same kind of feel to it if I'm not with you all.
Yeah,
I guess is what it is. And, seeing the changes that happen within the community are more gradual, except when we go out of town, I'm like, oh, well, this is new, or they've made a lot of progress. But yeah, I think it's I'm still living in this space, but it's without the same players. And so it doesn't feel the same until all the teams back together.
And you had Cam when you were 21, 22.
Yeah.
So I was also thinking about when we were back in our stomping grounds, like you were doing that 20 years ago almost. And so maybe not as nostalgic because you had just graduated high school and like you were, couple years in college at that time. But now, like, people our age having young kids and going back to those places where we played Little League, like, do they get nostalgic while they're there and just be like, wow, it feels like I was just here myself, although it was like 35 years ago.
No, I think is true. I wish I could actually put myself back in that moment and recall like whenever he was playing baseball on a field that I used to cheer beside, because I was not a ball girl. No, I'm not a ball athlete. No, but too many hits in the head, concussions. That's what I'm flying at your head. Oh, can't do it. But whenever I go back to those places, whenever, like if we were to drive by it, and then I'd think about him being there. Yeah. Because he's like 19 now, so he's a total full-blown adult. That gets me nostalgic. And I think, ironically, with you being here, us doing our photo shoot at our old middle school, this weekend also has to be like the 20th anniversary of the doctoral program I graduated from. And so hopefully update to come, but a lot of my old professors that I was really, really super close to, I think will hopefully be there. Maybe some of the classmates, but Cameron was like 3, maybe. Yeah, he was like 3, 4, and 5 when I was getting my doctorate. And so God bless those people because there'd be some days whenever he would just come to class with me. And
Yeah.
that just was what it was. But it was a very supportive and new program. And thank God he was a good kid. And so he grew up within those halls too. And so, I've roped him into coming tonight. So he's going to come and just say hello to people. I want to show him off. I think his mom,
Sure.
we always want to.
1000%. 1000.
Right. So I'm going to own that. I want to show off the kid. But that is going to have another layer of nostalgia to it. So this whole week is kind of, gosh, now that I'm thinking about it, it's really heavy.
Yeah. Right.
Gosh, I'm going to have a drink or 10 tonight. No, just kidding. We'll be responsible, but somewhat. But it's very neat to see like all of this.
See the full circle.
Yeah.
Moments. That's what I was thinking. It's fun to go back and what would you tell that younger version of yourself? And just thinking about the things you used to think about. I don't necessarily have very specific memories. Some I do, but like I remember how I used to feel in those situations or around those people or things like that. And most of them, almost all of them positive. And so it's fun to have that like kickstart to a memory that I haven't thought about for a long time. I don't know. I'm a very sentimental person too, I would say much more. Maybe it's being a female.
Yeah.
But I am very sentimental. And so I just relish in like, seeing people that I haven't seen for a long time and reconnecting with them or going to places. I like, often drive past like my childhood home where when my parents were married, where we lived. And so it's just really fun to remember those times in my life. Good, bad, ugly. Yeah, all of it. It's fun. But we really stepped down memory lane going back to where we met at our middle school this week for a photo shoot for the LYLAS podcast. And we had so much fun. It was so fun, even though most of the school, I would say, is like dismembered.
It is.
In some ways. I mean, there's some main hallways. What was still there? The cafeteria, the gymnasium, all of that was the same. And so we have so many memories just in the choir room.
The desk from the choir room, still the same.
Exact same. It's like the smell, the lockers, like everything. It was like, holy, this is wild. I think I said that over and over again. This is wild. Just to remember what it was like to walk through those halls. And to think about how far we had come. Like we laugh all the time because we're like, somehow, some way, we became functioning, successful adults.
Right.
And
we still have no idea. It's
a real head scratcher.
Yeah.
But somehow we did it. And the things that I would say to that girl, like it's all going to happen. Everything you ever want, you're going to have everything you ever wanted. Would you agree? You feel like, I mean, you've always been very, I don't know, like strong sense of self. You've always had a really strong sense of self. So maybe that little girl didn't necessarily need to hear those things, but I know I did as a kid. I needed that reassurance that it's all going to work out in the end.
Yeah, I don't know. You're going to make me really think about things.
Well, welcome to therapy.
Welcome to the other side of the chair, Dr. Stevens. You saddle up, check. Here we go. I think that, gosh, if I probably could have went back and told myself anything, I think at different points of time, it might have been like simmer down, I think that could be a lesson that had I had more practice at it at different points in my life, then that probably would have been beneficial. Although I don't know that it's been detrimental.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But I think that I could have learned a lot, and I can still learn a lot, like even today, about just like pausing at times. Like, especially most of the time, I'm 100% neutral. I have no strong, real opinions, but that switch, once it gets turned, let's burn down the world and roast the marshmallows over it. Oh yeah, it's a fun one. But that I think would be a lesson that would have been beneficial. And I don't know, I would love to go, I would probably definitely have made other decisions, because at one point in my life, I was had already been accepted into a university in New York City, was going to go to school there. And then, things changed. And so it would be neat in some ways to kind of see how past would have been different. But I don't know that things are so great now. I don't know that I would change it, but it felt like in that movie that just won the Oscar, Everywhere All at Once. I probably just messed up the title of it. Per Norm. Yeah. Per Norm. But
expectation.
Right. That's where we're at. But in that movie, it does provide an interesting clips of like how you make these different decisions at just points of time in your life, and how that, may have forked off in some ways and been very different. And the movie it's a very creative and fun way. And I don't ever watch movies. So my husband is actually the one that he's able to get me to a place where I'm able to like sit down and watch something. And it's only like sporadic. So he's not going to be able to do this again for like 6 months. So it better be a good
twice a year.
But twice a year, it's all he gets. But it would show you the different paths that you could have went down. And at some level, I think that would be cool, but then maybe it takes away from your appreciation of what you have now.
Yeah.
In the space that you're in. So
in the end.
Yeah. And I'm very happy with where everything is right now.
I found my diary. So I was doing a deep dive. I was trying to find our middle school yearbooks, which I did end up finding. But I also found my middle school diary, which again, I wrote very sporadically. Most of the topic sentence was like, sorry, I haven't written in a while. It's not consistent.
Into the diary.
Oh, always. It was like, I promised to take you on vacation. Oh, sorry, I left you. I forgot to, just, it was like I was talking to a human. I don't know. But I was boy crazy. Like every single thing I wrote about, at some point I wrote about the boy that I was crushing on at the time.
No way.
And I remember being that way 1000%. But it was so funny to like, if I could go back and tell that girl, I'd be like, girl, don't worry about the boys. Like, trust me, that's going to work out just the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
You're not meant to fall in love with anybody here. So that's the only thing that I was like, geez, I was really, I hope that Jolie has other focus once it comes to middle school, and that she's not just like solely focused on a boy at the time. I don't know. I didn't have like a specific sport that I played either. And so I didn't have any other, I don't know, like really hobbies. I hate to say that. I enjoyed like gymnastics, but I didn't make the cheerleading team.
She always
but that ended real quick.
You made ensemble. We were in your choir room. You did send me a picture from our middle school yearbook of
me in my ensemble.
In your ensemble uniform. That's right.
Yeah, but I was really boy crazy, which is funny. I think probably no surprise to you to hear that.
Yeah, but I don't remember it so much in middle school. But maybe
I totally do. Yeah. I mean, it probably started like 5th grade, honestly, if I'm being totally honest. But it was also funny just to read the things that we used to write to each other, in our yearbooks, and to think about those kids and like just where everybody sort of like ended up in life, and the people that I know and keep up with. Sometimes it's surprising, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
But it is really interesting to just kind of see what happened to those kids. If you could line us all up, and go through and just see kind of where we're at. Here we are recording a podcast. Like, who would have thunk it?
No.
He would have told us that 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago.
Yeah. We probably would have thought it'd been really cool.
Oh,
I'm sure it would have
just podcast,
first of all. Right. And then like, oh my God, how are we going to sound?
I mean, we were still learning to type on a typewriter.
Oh, Jesus.
Ancient.
Yes. Still learning to type on a typewriter. Still look at my hands.
Yeah.
Slow.
Yeah.
Did not help. Classes in Miss Flagg's room. Ineffective. Sorry. Probably my fault, not yours.
So we hit our old middle school.
We did.
We went over to the covered bridge, which we had also taken some photos in our yearbook,
which was
kind of cool to go back and look at that. But we hit that site for some photos. And then we went over to the football field and took some photos like up in the stands. And for me, when I was there, I could like instantly teleport back to being a kid and being there. For Sarah, you teleported back to watching Cam.
Yeah.
And you were like, those were the memories that came up for you. So interesting that we were both thinking different things. You were like, gosh, it feels like I was just here with Cam. I was 19 years old. He's in college. Um, and for me, I was just like, all I could think about is was a kid being there and watching my friends cheer
Stop.
and the football teams and just
Hmm.
what it was like to be there. So and the pool, definitely missed the Milton pool.
That was the best.
I mean, it basically raised me.
Thank you.
Right. Barb would drop us at like 9 in the morning and pick us up at 4:30 when she got off. And it's a wonder we didn't drown. I mean, they had lifeguards, but
There were people that were supervising something.
but we were just running ragged.
Yeah, and I think about those days and I'm like, would I have ever done that? Like with our
With your
kids?
kid, no.
Hell no.
Zero
Probably would have got a CPS call on our ass for that for sure too. But I mean, not our parents. Hell, they didn't know we were at half the time. They drop us off in a neighborhood and be like, peace. No cell phones. But I think that created a quality of like resilience and self-responsibility that I don't know, maybe we're lacking in not doing that.
Yeah, giving our kids the opportunities to just explore. But it is such a different world.
That's true.
I think about
So
like just, we would leave in the morning and come back at dusk and, out on our bike or out on like
a road.
Yeah. I mean, we were wherever. We had some, boundaries, but for the most part, we were just kind of like running around the neighborhood. And I give Jack like a street he can go down.
Right.
Right. He's not running the whole neighborhood at the age of 8. So very different childhoods for sure. We kind of had the best of both worlds. I think about that more and more watching kids grow up now. I'm like, it's so nice. We're like the last generation that didn't have all the technology and cell phones and social media. And, we had like real experiences. I hate to say that. Not that kids today don't, but it was such a different time for us.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And even as you were talking about like being babysit by the Milton pool, the reason why I think that we could have safely been monitored by the lifeguards there is they weren't on their phones.
Right.
They didn't have any other type of entertainment except to watch these, wild butts just,
wild animals with their parents dropped off.
Right, run around in the damn pool. God, they were probably scared to death seeing how we were acting, that we were going to drown. So they might have been more attentive than what I'm getting them credit for. So
I don't know. They were teenagers. I mean, they were, they were teenagers just hanging out for their summer job.
Maybe
they were, getting the sand, checking out babes.
Right. I'm sure we were checking.
Don't worry about the 7-year-old drowning.
No,
it's fine.
No,
she'll recover. Resilience.
We're learning these things, aren't we? Yeah.
But how do you give your kids those experiences? I tend to, when I come home, mom and I always like take the kids to the zoo where we went for kids. We always went to Louisville to visit my grandparents. And so like we try to do those similar types of things with the kids, but just try to give them some of the same experiences. It's really fun to sort of experience that with my mom and her being the grandparent. But just trying to give them sort of like that similar childhood that we had. So it's not just, watching their iPad all the time as my child sits in the hallway watching her iPad.
She's fine.
Mom's working. Okay? Mom's working.
We got this.
Yeah. But just trying to give them some sense of how we grew up. I don't know. I find myself trying to do that specifically when I come home. I wish very much that I'd be able to take the kids over to my dad's farm and give them that experience. That's not going to happen. But, I still look for ways to show them where I'm from and where I grew up. This place means so much to me. It's such a part of who I am. And so I want them to know that, or know this place and the good, genuinely good people that come from here.
Yeah. And I can definitely see that as being so important, especially since living away, I think, creates that fondness. You know what I mean? And kind of space in your heart and things like that. And I think being here at time, again, it gets rekindled for me when the people are here.
Yeah.
It's a different transformational experience, I guess, in just kind of staying in one place. But whenever I go and visit other places, like whenever I go to New York, whenever I go down to see you in Charleston, it's that to me is also kind of like coming to a home, because the people, for me, a home is about the people more so, I think, than the place.
Place, for sure.
Yeah. Like I can feel at home anywhere in the world if I have like certain people with me. Or back in the day, whenever I was alone, I was just fine being, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At home, wherever train station I was in at that point in time. But for me, it's not even about like, I don't know that it's about like this as much as it is this.
Right. The connection between the
Yes.
people that
Yes.
remind you of those days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can see that too. I definitely think there's something to the human connection aspect of it. I forget how beautiful this place is. Like when I was driving here today, I'm looking out over our little town of Milton, where I grew up, Milton. It's a beautiful place, and it's very different from where I live now, but
Still pretty.
it is. It's got so much charm to it, and I just see so much potential, like we were talking about, if they would like revitalize the Main Street area, it could be such a cute, quaint little town. And it was, especially in the 80s, a great place to grow up for the most part. I mean,
Loved it.
No major regrets. But it was a sweet, everybody knew everybody. A lot of my family's from here, so it was just, kind of like connected. Whereas when you move to a place, when you're a transplant, it's a different feel. You're like, well, I've lived here almost 20 years, but I'm not from here. This is where I'm from.
Sure.
So I guess in some ways, Charleston will always be that for my kids.
That's right.
Feel at home when they are in the Low Country, but I feel at home when I come home. Well, I think I'll always refer to West Virginia as home.
Oh, that's sweet. Your husband, thinking about like your family and all, he moved around a lot as a kid, right?
Somewhat. So he was born in New Jersey.
No way.
Yeah, he was born in Jersey, and then they moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Okay.
When his dad was working for Exxon at the time, and then he got into Harvard Business School, and so they moved to Boston for like 2 or 3 years, where Jeff learned to ride a bike. So when we went to Boston, he really wanted to kind of like go to the area where he grew up and see what he could remember, because he was so little. And so that was fun. He was like, here's where we got mugged, and here's where I learned to ride a bike. He had very specific memories, but he's not super sentimental or, like one to really dig into nostalgic things. He's like, oh, that's cool. But that was fun for him to kind of go back and show me those places. So he lived in Boston, and then they moved to Michigan, which if you ask him where he's from, he'll say he's from Michigan, because that's where the bulk of his memory comes from. And he loved it. Midwest town, like loved growing up in Michigan. Yeah, obviously Michigan U of M fan.
Huge.
But I could see every time we would go visit his parents, I'm like, this is a lovely place to grow up. I can see why people move to the Midwest. Beautiful summers,
sensibilities.
And it just seems very connected, and like people look out for each other. Just a very sweet sort of childhood. Which is, I think, ultimately what we're trying to accomplish for our kids, is to give them the best childhood possible.
Is it important for you then, since you have this like real strong connection here, to show your kids that other side of his family too, or like his childhood and growing up, so that way they get a sense from both of you? Like,
good question, because we've never taken them to Michigan.
Really?
And well, we don't really have a reason to go now that his parents don't live there. They sold their house. So that's a good question. I mean, the kids have been up to Boston to visit his family up there. It is important to me. I definitely want them to know that side of the family. I'm obviously a talker, and I go there with like everything. But I respect the fact that not everybody likes to delve into their childhood or
emergency happens. We're in
downtown Barboursville, West Virginia.
Right. Which means somebody's trash can is caught on fire. It's not, everything's fine.
But I guess as they get older, I definitely want them to go to New York with their grandparents, because John and my in-laws are from New York. So I would like for them to experience the city with their grandparents. And especially Vicky has a lot of memories in Brooklyn where her aunt and uncle lived. Yeah. So she's, she navigates the city really well. And so I think it would be fun to take the kids and have them kind of see where they grew up. I do think it's important to know where your family comes from.
Yeah, it does form who you are in so many different ways. Like all those different experiences that he must have had, similar to like our different experiences. It does add to your shape as a human, and your values, your beliefs, everything that you are is a product of those environments. And so coming in contact with them is cool to do. And it does add then to your children's shape.
Right.
You know,
Or
as a piece
by
of it.
proxy for sure. I think that what's interesting to me, and maybe it's bias as being a West Virginian, but you know, I waited tables a long time in college and graduate school, and when I would meet anybody from West Virginia down in South Carolina, you know, there was like an instant connection, like that you're the same, like you're cut from the same cloth kind of person. Like we just, my husband says that my accent really comes out thick whenever I come home or whenever I'm on the phone with my mom. But it just, there is like an instant connection with people that you know are from the same state. And I think because West Virginia gets so much negative publicity,
That's fair.
That we're almost defensive about our state, but it's almost like we also want to keep it a secret that it's so amazing in some ways. But you also, especially in these little towns, you see the need for revitalization, like a renaissance to kind of move through here. And I know that's happening down in Huntington, and it's moving its way towards Barbersville, and eventually we'll get its way to Milton.
Right.
But you just, there is a special uniqueness to the people here. It's really hard to describe. I feel like most people are very friendly. Everybody looks out for one another.
That's true.
You know, not to say that there's not people that aren't like that, but it's just the majority of the people from around here, from my experience, or people that I've met living outside of the state, it's just like a connected feeling, knowing that we all came from the same place. I don't know how to explain that.
No, I think you did a good job with it for sure. And I know like when we go out of town or whenever we travel, my husband is a beautiful singer, like was in a legit rock and roll band, which sometime we should probably, he will kill me, but we should probably talk about that. Right.
Guest appearance.
Right. Guest appearance. Hey babe, sing a song.
Hey, cute.
Right. He might come walking through the door right now. But we find ourselves in karaoke bars, like around the globe, wherever we happen to be. But in every single one we've ever been to, like in rural Salzburg or in the middle of downtown Tokyo or in some place in, I don't know, the Czech Republic, Country Roads
every time
is always on there. And in some of these places, we're not in like those rooms. We've found it important to sing in front of the crowd, right? And everybody always knows all the words to Country Roads.
That's great.
And I'm just like, I am in like a very small rural community, found the only bar that has a karaoke machine or something, and everybody there knows it.
Yeah.
And so that is, I think, a very beautiful piece of our culture that is shared with the world in a way and has its own kind of mysticism about it, because the song is very descriptive and beautiful to listen to. And whenever you're here, you can actually drive through and see all of those things. Except some of them weren't exactly 100% accurate, but most of it is all right here. And then the other thing you mentioned about culture, which got me thinking, like whenever I used to teach at one of the universities for the med school, I would have to come in every time we get new residents and do a whole like 2-day lecture series on Appalachian culture. So they would have to like learn our words that sometimes we use, like nuances about some of the tragedies and things like that that have happened within our state and how that has kind of shaped our view.
Community.
Some of these physicians that were coming in were residents, and so they were on different visas. And so just kind of breaking it down like, hey, we're kind of like dogs, you know, we're very pack oriented. We're going to sniff you out, but once you're part of the pack, guess what, bro? You're here forever. You know what I mean? And I think helping to kind of cultivate that sense of understanding helped them come into our culture.
Easier.
So much, but it is a very different and unique place. And it's almost like as soon as you like cross the state lines and get into the thick of it, it's like you're in a bubble. Like you've just been like transported to this weird little bubble. But it is one that is cool and reflective. And I do think overall it's a fairly good place to raise kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm with other experiences also happening within their life, I think is
And you've
important.
been very fortunate to be able to give your kids so many other experiences traveling outside of the
Sure.
country. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. And it helps you appreciate where you came from when you travel other places and you see people's pride for their hometowns. It kind of like brings that up inside of you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the same way when I hear country roads. I used to work in a bar and we had a live band and they sang it almost every single night. And the lead singer was from West Virginia.
No way.
And so he sang it with such emotion and it was just, I loved it. It was my favorite part of every night. And it does, I think, ring true, especially when you're not inside the state, being 500 miles away. I would get a little bit homesick when you hear that song, but to that same tune, excuse me, when mom and I were in Italy, in Rome, a man was playing it on some sort of instrument in the restaurant we were
Oh
listening
my
to,
gosh.
that we were eating at. And so just it has crossed so many cultures. Everybody knows every word to it. To this day, if it comes on, my son looks at me and he's like, "Mom, it's your song." Like they just know. So it is really special to have that to reflect upon sometimes and just to sort of bring you back to who you are and where you came from.
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember those things.
Yeah, and I think for us too, it's important for us to hear about other people's experience in this. Like again, I'd be curious to know like about what your husband's was like and going all those different places. My husband grew up here, but in a different community. And his family background was different. So we go out to his family farm and, which is out Wayne and stuff like that and see this, or to go through his neighborhood. We actually trick or treat in the same neighborhood that he grew up in with Rocky Pop. And so that too has its own kind of like feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Nostalgic feel to it for him, for sure.
Yeah. And then I think it's, even if you don't live in that place or if you do it, I think it is cool to share things with your kids that you enjoyed as a child. And so whether that is, I still haven't got my, Cameron's 19. I'm embarrassed. He still has not went whitewater rafting. I grew up on the New River. Like anytime I was with my dad on the weekend, it almost seemed like we were rafting down that damn river. So he hasn't done that, but those types of things are important. Both the kids fish, both of them now as part of Cameron's life and culture has changed with Jeff being a part of it. We go hunting. And so, Rox is going hunting with us too. And so it's just neat to share those grounding things and then to hear about what other people do within like their state. Like if you're in California, what are you all doing? We know we got listeners. So what are y'all doing? Colorado, what's up?
And well, South Carolina, like I look at people that I know that grew up there and they're fishing and boating is big for them. A lot of those outdoorsy activities, same things that we like to do up here, they're doing, but they grew up with those same memories and they're providing those same experiences for their kids. Same thing, like taking them deep sea fishing or, things that they grew up doing. I'm the same way. I just think giving them those experiences, whether it means as much to them or not, but at least they'll always have that memory of like, well, this is what my mom used to do when she was a kid. Now this is what we're doing. It's fun. Yeah. It's fun for us. It's fun for them. I drag my kids all over the place. They're like, another car ride. I'm like, yeah.
I think my big takeaway from this week is to allow yourself to have those experiences of nostalgia. And sometimes it might be pain or sadness or whatever it might be, but I think that it's important for us to reconnect with that stuff and the people that it was a part of, just because it has created our shape. Our shape continues to change, but with those, I don't know, things mixed in it, it was really fun. I loved it.
I loved it too. Very reflective to just look at how far we've come, I mean, and to take some pride in that too. And like, you did it, you accomplish the things that you set out to do. Not to say that we don't still have more goals and that we don't want to still accomplish more, but like for the most part, I kept thinking about that. I'm like, you're living the life you always dreamed of. And there's a lot of pride in that, everything worked out in the end.
Yeah. So big thanks to all of our parents, our teachers who
put up with us.
God bless our coaches who sometimes had to like find us when we were running track or other things.
Deviating into
oh my God.
Becky's beauty box.
Ay.
For a Coke. Who drinks Pepsi, I should say.
Whenever
Pepsi in the middle of a track practice.
Well, whenever they moved Snowbiz down about a mile and a half, that was the fastest I would ever run to go down there. So that way I could eat some Snowbiz and then make the run back. So I guess that's time.
All right. Time's up. My kid's done. Done in the hallway with the collector.
I know.
Until next week, guys. Thanks for joining us. Catch us on Instagram, Facebook, or go to our website at LYLASpodcast.com. We've got a ton of resources on there. So check us out. We got some blog posts coming up, so look for those as well. And of course, send us any ideas, comments, questions, anything you would like for us to chat about. Gotta go.
This is mom life. Mom life. Peace. Peace.
Go with.